Hi everyone, my name is Carrie Ricky. You are in the section called Confronting Cancer as a Family. I want to make sure everybody's in the right breakout room. I'm going to wait just another second or two. I see some people jumping on now. I hope you guys have been having a great day. I really wish we were in Seattle together. That was going to be so exciting, but I'm really grateful to Stupid Cancer for putting all of this together. I know this has been quite an effort for everybody. So I see a few more people hopping on and I don't want to get started without them. So we'll just give everybody another minute or two. All right. So again, my name is Carrie Ricky. I am a social worker, a licensed social worker in New Jersey. I work as an oncology social worker at the Carol G. Simon Cancer Center. It's part of Overlook Medical Center, which is in Summit, New Jersey, about 30 minutes outside of New York City, right near Newark Airport. It's a beautiful sunny day here in New Jersey today. So I hope everyone's doing well. I've been at the Carol G. Simon Cancer Center for about 9 years, working specifically doing supportive counseling for patients, helping patients find community resources, a lot of education as well. I work predominantly with breast cancer patients, as well as young patients who have children. We do a lot of parent education, balancing being a parent and a patient at the same time, which is definitely a tricky challenge. And also a lot of information about how do you talk to your children about cancer and things of that sort. So I do have a tremendous amount of young adults as my patients, especially more recently as well. I also work at the Cancer Support Community, which is a national organization. Our local chapter is in Bedminster, New Jersey. It's the Cancer Support Community of Central New Jersey, and I facilitate groups for kids and parents, as well as educational programs there. I've done other presentations, other webinars, or presentations at conferences, mostly surrounding children and cancer, talking to kids about cancer and how to parent through cancer. So it's the first time talking specifically to young adults, but I think it's a great opportunity and such a great and needed experience. The unique needs of being a young adult with cancer are so different than other age populations. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Just so you know a little bit about me, I am from New Jersey and we tend to talk very fast. So I am going to make a conscious effort to slow down a little bit and make sure that you can hear me well. I have been married to my husband, Mike, for 12 and a half years. We have 3 kids, ages, my son just turned 11, a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. I have 3 siblings. My father passed away recently, but my mom lives nice and close by to me. And I have siblings and they're married, and my husband has siblings and they're married. So we have 15 nieces and nephews amongst all of us. So I have a big family, which is a lot of personalities, a lot of people to manage. And so today we're going to focus on some of that. How do we work through all of that? And how do we let those people all be a part of our journey? So I am going to share my screen here with you. So if you just give me 1 second. And we'll get started. So we're going to talk today about confronting cancer as a family. So one of the main things I tell patients is that it's really hard to be the cancer patient, but it's also really hard to be the family members around it. But as the patients, I feel that you have the ability to be in charge. You are the gatekeeper of this experience and ultimately the main person going through it. And that can also be a very lonely experience, even with people right around us. So we're going to talk about how to let people in and when and how to manage all of those, because sometimes other people want to make those choices for us, specifically when we're a young adult with cancer. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. I just want to point out, so Sadie is our moderator from Stupid Cancer, and she is going to be checking the Q&A. So if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to send them to her. And then at the end, I'll be answering some of those questions for you. So please feel free to use that at any point in time. So again, we're going to talk again about what's unique about being a young adult with cancer. Why is that different? Why is it different to be a 25-year-old cancer patient versus a 45-year-old versus a 65-year-old? And why is that different for all these age groups? We're going to talk about what impacts our family dynamics, our relationships, our age, our health, geography, finances. What I want to stress to you the most, and my main objective for you, is that there are no right or wrong answers in any of this. What is right is what feels right to you. So I'm going to speak as though I'm speaking to patients specifically, but I know there are family members listening as well, and that there are healthcare professionals listening as well. So I'm going to talk as though the whole audience is a patient, but know that there are various needs, and we want to be the best family members we can be the best professionals that we can be in order to support this individual who is going through this experience. So the right choices for people are specifically going to be what feels right to you. And then once you figure out what feels right to you, how do you make those wishes known? How do you tell your family around you what you need in each moment and who you want with you during those moments? So those are some of the things we'll focus on today. So generally speaking, cancer diagnosis at any age, what are the things that we go through? There's a physical impact. It impacts our abilities, what we're able to do, what we're not able to do. And we're going to talk about some of those individual ones more specific to young adults with cancer. But we're also going to talk about the financial impact, the emotional impact, and then the family impact. And all of those three pieces, the physical, financial, and emotional, are all going to contribute to our family impact as well, because all of those are going to interfere with how our family has to respond to our cancer diagnosis. So specifically, as a young adult with cancer, and the physical impact, we know that many patients, one of the main things that I hear patients say is the fatigue. It's a tired that is not cured with taking a nap. Maybe for 5 minutes or so, it feels cured for taking a nap. It's this exhaustion. And it's also a need for assistance. So as a young adult with cancer, one of the challenges we're going to find is if I need help. Did I just have, when I've had surgery and I have drains in, somebody needs to be around, say, to empty those drains for me. But that also borders into this personal area of, I'm a young adult, I don't necessarily want a family member in there with me. And so perhaps needing help in the shower, help getting up and down the stairs, things of that sort. So there's going to be a physical need for some assistance. As well as cognitive impairments. So our cognitive impairments really interfere with a lot of different aspects of our life, whether that's our ability to go to work, a need for supervision, always having somebody around, not being able to be left home alone. Perhaps the cognitive impairment is also, for example, having seizures. You can't be left home alone, and so now I really am feeling like a child again. I am now always with other people, taking care of me, and that's how they see it. And that's really a struggle as well. Perhaps it interferes with our ability to drive. It may even be that you're on pain medications and you can't drive yourself. And one of our biggest pieces of freedom is that ability to just get in the car and go. Or I live near New York City, so many people just take public transportation. But if you are having seizures, you're not going to be able to, get on the subway by yourself, possibly. So it's always having somebody else around, and that tends to make us feel more like a child. So we come from that young adult section and kind of get brought back into being a child. So those physical impacts definitely bring us down a little bit. Our body image, cancer and body image, I feel like goes really hand in hand, and it goes far beyond possibly losing our hair, or having a mastectomy and losing our breasts, or any kind of surgical thing. Perhaps, we're usually physically fit and now we're very frail, or we've taken steroids and your face starts to swell up and you start to gain weight, and that's very uncomfortable for people. So as a young adult, there's a huge component of our body image along with our diagnosis as well as our treatments. And that's going to impact how we're feeling as well. The financial impact. Young adults, the financial stability of having a job and the financial security of having a job can vary greatly between being 18, 25, 35, 40. How long you've been at your job, Do you feel like you can easily take time off and still be able to have enough money in savings, getting paid less? Those are all going to impact the decisions that our family makes around us. Our place of residence. We talked a little bit about that physical need for assistance. If I live alone because I'm 25 and that's where I've been living, how is that going to impact me? Many patients have to move back in with their family, perhaps back in with their parents. Perhaps you just moved in with your significant other and they did not necessarily sign up to be the caregiver of somebody with cancer at 22. So there are a lot of different family dynamics that come into play based on our place of residence. Also, too, let's think about you live with your spouse and your children, but maybe somebody has to come live in your home to help you with your children. And we'll talk about the family dynamics that come along with that. So that's also tremendous. Oftentimes young adults are in the middle of still paying back student loans. You just graduated, you haven't really got the solid job yet, and you are trying to pay back these $500 a month loans. And now you have medical bills on top of all of this. That's a huge impact on families and patients as well. Disability options. So as I said before, maybe you haven't been at your job long enough to have paid into the system to take on disability, and you need to take time off from work. So how is that going to look? Do you have a family that's willing and able to help financially support you? And the answer may be no. So that is going to impact our families as well. And insurance coverage. I know here in New Jersey, many young adults stay on their parents' insurance until they're 26 years old. It used to be just while you were in college. Now we've made it to 26 years old. So you have these young adults who may not be the primary person holding on to their insurance, and they have to go to their parents, and maybe they know that there's a $5,000 deductible on their dad's insurance plan through his work, and that feels like a lot of pressure, because I feel badly that my parent has to pay this money. So there's all of those components as well. Perhaps you are the policy holder for your new married couple, and you feel as though you can't leave your job or take some time off from work because you don't want to interfere with your family's insurance as well. So there's different issues that will come up based on who's the insurance holder in the family. And the privacy of explanation of benefits. So your dad when you're 25 years old gets that explanation of benefits, and you have all this information on there that maybe you didn't necessarily want to share with your parents yet. Maybe you weren't comfortable sharing with your family members around you, but that explanation of benefits goes to the policyholder, and that interrupts our ability to have that privacy and who we want to share our diagnosis with. So those are some things to keep in mind based on kind of your financial position more so in life. There's also a tremendous emotional impact for anybody who has a cancer diagnosis. And so I always tell patients, give yourself some time and let yourself feel it all. Specifically as a young adult with cancer, I think of a cancer diagnosis as kind of our loss of innocence, our loss of invincibility. Specifically as a young adult, as a teenager or a young adult, we tend to feel like we're invincible. Nothing's going to hurt me. That's something that older people get. And so this feeling of walking into a doctor's office and hearing the word cancer is so overwhelming. And there's this, this post-traumatic stress that comes from that moment. And so many times the first part of our grief and our feelings is that feeling of denial. I'm 23, I felt the lump in my breast, but if I don't go to the doctor and they don't tell me that it's cancer, it's not really there, right? I don't have to follow up on this. They told me to get a biopsy, but I'm so young and there's no history in my family. It's probably nothing. And so we tend to use that denial just to help support ourselves and help us cope through this situation. We go through the stage of anger, and it's important to remember when you're angry about the things that cancer is taking away in your life. As we talked a little bit about, you have to move back in with your parents, say. You're not angry with your parents, you're angry at the cancer. And so that's going to play into our moments in our families as well. Bargaining, I will do anything to get out of the situation. I will start eating right, I'll start exercising, I'll do whatever you say as long as I can get out of this. And a huge feeling of depression. I have a young patient who just graduated college. She finally got herself through college as she was going through her treatment, and all of her friends are going on to their jobs. But her cancer is one that's not going away right now. So she is continuing on this cancer journey, and chances are will for the rest of her life. And so as her friends that she went to school with and studied with and worked with all these years are going about their lives, she's feeling like, why don't I get that chance? So that feeling of depression, that feeling of being in this by yourself. And hopefully at some point a feeling of acceptance. That's the goal. And some days you may be at that point and tomorrow you're at a different one again. So it's figuring out all of those feelings for yourself. And then the huge question that comes after that is, who can I let in? Who do I want to let in? There's an expectation that the person who's right next to me is the person that I have to definitely let into all of these feelings. And that may not be for you, the person that you want to let in. So we're going to take some time to make those choices and figure out what feels right. Sorry, I'm seeing I want to make sure I'm still on there. Okay. So young adults, the family impact. Who are the family members that we have? We have our parents, our siblings, our grandparents. That's our family of origin, the family that we came from, the family that kind of impacted us the most in our younger years and that we're starting to maybe move away from a little bit as we become a young adult. People moving on, getting married, moving away, things of that sort. We also too worry about our grandparents. Are they too old? Should I not tell them? They're already sick themselves. It's another aspect to manage as well. Or I'm really close to my grandma, but I didn't necessarily want to tell my mom. So we're going to balance all of those moments. And then we're going to talk a little bit about our assumed family, our spouses, our in-laws, our children, our friends. And as a young adult with cancer, I feel like our friends are such a huge part of our lives and the people that we may want to include in this journey. So we'll talk a little bit about them as well. So that family of origin, our parents, our siblings, and our grandparents really impact and have this pre-existing family dynamics. We have our previous roles that we've played in our family. I am the youngest of 4 kids, so I have always been the baby. I have always been the little kid. And so even though I'm now 40, I still am considered the youngest. I'm not necessarily the one that somebody would go to for support, but as a family, we've gone through different situations. Those roles have started to change a little bit, which is pretty amazing to watch happen over the years. Are we a family of secrecy or openness? Are you the family that sat openly at the dinner table and could talk about, puberty or who you were dating or what was happening with your friends or what was happening at school, or were things that were happening kind of whispered around? Were your parents open with you about illnesses or things that happened in life? And that will impact our ability to want to share with our siblings or our parents, but also maybe the people around us, because that's what's our comfort level. Also, too, then we have our comfort with our emotions. I come from a very Irish Catholic family where we don't talk about our feelings all that much. In fact, we oftentimes make jokes to avoid things that feel too serious or too, or will hurt. I don't necessarily cry openly in front of that family of origin. That would feel uncomfortable to me. But in my new family, in my friends, and in my spouse and the people around me, I tend to be more open with those emotions. So it's balancing all of those things and figuring out what still feels right to you and what feels right to the people around you. And there are really no right or wrong answers to that. It's just being conscious of how you feel and how the people around you feel. So for example, if you are very open and you're very willing to cry in front of other people, the person in your family who is dealing with this as well with you may not feel that way. They may not feel that they can talk about things as openly. So what are those pre-existing things, the experiences and the roles we've always had? And now we're going to bring in our outsiders, the people around us who impact our lives. They're a part of our everyday experience. In some ways, they may now be even more important or more a part of our lives than our family of origin. So for example, our significant others. You may be in a new relationship, you just started dating a few months ago, and here we are at the doctor's office finding out you have cancer. Do you feel like that's the person that you want to bring along on this journey with you? Does it feel comfortable, or is there that relationship too new? How does that impact your relationship with your family as this outsider or this person that they don't really know, being in these very serious family moments? And that may change based on whether or not you're 18, 28, 38, different ages, your family may receive that person a little bit differently. You have long-term partners. Maybe you're only 22 years old, but you've been dating your boyfriend for 6, 7 years. You were high school sweethearts. They may feel like part of the family. That relationship is going to feel a little bit different than the brand new relationship. You may be newly married. Your spouse feels like your person to you. But your sister, who you've known for your whole life, for 30 years, she feels like she's still your person. And your mom, who lives down the street and comes over all the time, she feels like she's your person. So how do we manage all of those people in this experience? And how do we figure out, who do I include in these moments? And is there a way to include everybody at different levels? And in those new relationships, in those significant others that we have, or in our marital relationships, now we also have this whole other new family, our significant other's family of origin, our in-laws. You may be extremely close to your mother-in-law, and she may be the person you want to have come move into your house to help you, because you're closer to your mother-in-law than you are to your own mother. Or you may not have that kind of relationship. Your mother-in-law may want to be a part of this, and you may not feel that closeness, and that's okay. But again, these are things that we have to figure out, because they are all players in this situation. Friends, as I said, I think young adults are really in a unique situation, because many young adults, especially just out of college, you're in your early 20s, you're in your, early 30s, you may live with your friends. You may be in college and have 5 roommates. You may have one roommate that you've had since college, and you're 30 years old, and you do everything together. So they're not your significant other. They're not your family, but to you, that's the closest person in your life. And so how are they a part of all of this? What role do they play, and how do they help you through this? And how do they help take care of you? Because legally on paper, they're not a family member. They are not, but that may be your best friend and that person that you want in that moment. And our coworkers. Our coworkers are oftentimes the people that we spend most of our day with, especially when you're working long hours and things of that sort. You're spending a tremendous amount of time together. And so you're having lunch together, you're, sharing moments together. And some people really want their coworkers to be the ones that are going to help support them through this. And other people, although you spend all this time with your coworkers, may not actually want to share too much of this, because it may impact their work, or it may impact how they're seen in the workplace. I don't want to be seen as weak. I don't want to be seen as the person who has cancer. I don't want to be less than, so I'm not going to include them. There's also some legal restrictions on whether or not your boss can call you while you're in disability, but you're friends with your boss and you eat lunch with your boss every day, and she wants to call you, but HR is telling her she can't. And there's some different dynamics in that as well with our coworkers. But figuring out, are they more a coworker? Are they more friend? How do you want to balance that? How do you want to play this piece of it? So that, again, we have our outsiders, these new people that we're bringing into our family life, as well as that family of origin, the previous family. As we're moving maybe a little bit more away from them, how do we include them as well? So again, these are where we're going to take some time. How do I balance all of this? I would say the main way to balance all of this is to take a step back and take some time alone. Um, I think one of the biggest challenges of going through a cancer diagnosis is you may have very little time alone, particularly if you're a young adult with cancer. You've now moved home from college, you moved back into your mom's house, you are just, new at your job, but you've come home to live with your family because those are the people who are taking care of you. So your mom is with you constantly, your dad's with you constantly, your little brother, your big brother, all these people are now back in your life. And maybe you lived in your own apartment. Maybe you lived in an apartment with friends or whoever, but now we're back in this house and we have people with us all the time. And that may feel really good, but there may be times where that feels overwhelming. As I said before, I'm married and I have 3 kids. I have very little time where I'm by myself. I'm either at work with my coworkers or I'm at home with my children and my husband and my family. And maybe my time outside of the house is going to visit my mom or my siblings or, nieces and nephews. And there's very little time. And I feel a little bit guilty saying, I need to just get out for a minute. I need some quiet. Because the way to figure out how we're feeling in all of this and the way to figure out what feels right to us is going to be taking some time to figure it all out. So again, recharging our batteries. We sometimes think of self-care as being selfish. And I like to remind patients that it's never selfish to take that self-care. It's never selfish to say, I just need a break. I need to lay on the sofa for 10 minutes. I need to go for a walk. I just need to get out for a little bit and I need to be in my own space. We may feel very guilty, particularly say, for example, you're a young adult, you have kids at home and you're helping to take care of them and your spouse now comes home from work and they really want to be with you and spend some time with you, but really all you want to do is go out for a little bit and spend some time alone. How do you make that happen without feeling guilty about that? How do you say to your mom who's really just trying to make you a sandwich, I don't feel well right now. I just need quiet. I want to be alone. I want to go for a walk. So it's taking that time and remembering that importance and why that's so important to you. Many patients find, we oftentimes recommend a lot to our patients are various integrative medicine programs. So meditation, guided imagery. We may feel bombarded with people all day long in our face, constantly asking for things, and you're at work and you're doing this and you're also tired. That fatigue is also adding to this. And I need a few minutes to just step back and have quiet. And that can be really hard to shut our mind off from, particularly at nighttime when we're by ourselves and we do have a moment, but now it's dark and that tends to be when we feel the most anxious. So meditation sometimes can help alleviate some of that anxiety in those moments alone. And again, really just try to focus on what is feeling good to me. And exercise, that time to exercise, that time to get out some of our feelings, I always joke around when I go for a run, I say it's like my free therapy. Nobody's asking me for anything. Nobody wants anything. Nobody's saying anything. I can just be alone with my thoughts and with some music and take a run and just clear my head completely. And those endorphins that come out and that, all of that is going to help you through this as well. And will give you time to think about what feels good to me. Who do I want around me in all of this? One of the biggest challenges I think patients feel, whether you're a young adult or anybody, is setting limits. How do I tell people what I need in that moment? How do I set those boundaries? How do I tell somebody I want them to come with me? I don't want them to come with me. And we're going to talk too about that as well. Because setting limits can be a very delicate balance, a very tricky situation. And it's really being important. It is very important to be able to do. And the permission to change our minds. Nothing is set in stone. What you want today and what you want tomorrow and what you want a year from now may be very different. And you get that permission to change your minds. And it's important to tell your family and the people around you that not only may you change your mind, but it's okay for them to change their minds as well. So just again, be very mindful of the fact that how you're feeling at each moment is going to be different, and give yourself that chance to experience it and to feel it. And then this is going to be our main piece here is making those wishes known. So those are our family moments, either individually as a group. How do I have that discussion with my family? And we're going to be very mindful of the fact that it is extremely hard to be the patient who has cancer. Absolutely. That is by far the hardest position to be in, to be that family member that has cancer. But it's also really hard to be a mom whose child has cancer and a dad whose child has cancer. It's really hard to be the spouse or the significant other of somebody who has cancer. It's hard to be the sibling. It's hard to be the friends. It's hard to be the mother-in-law. It's hard to be any one of those people because they are all feeling very helpless. So it's important to remember as a patient that the people around you genuinely care and love you. So we want to be as empathetic as possible in these moments as we're figuring out the limits that we want to set and the boundaries that we want to set, and deciding who we want to invite in and maybe who we want to kind of hold at a little bit more of a distance. It's very important to be very empathetic in those moments to the people around you who genuinely love you and care for you. And to be gentle with their feelings. Now, ultimately, I still say you need to advocate for yourself. But in the way that you're going to speak those words, I'd encourage you to be as gentle as possible, because they are also going through something that's extremely difficult. One of the main pieces of advice I also give families is to be very clear. Be very specific. Whether it's your parent or your sibling or your child or your spouse or significant other, they may have known you for 5 days, for 5 years, or for your entire life. But you have never been through this particular experience together before. So they may not know how to best help you. They may not know what you need in that moment. I say to people all the time, sometimes I'll get frustrated with my husband because he doesn't do something that I wanted him to do. And then I stop myself and I say, did I ever tell him I needed him to do that? Did I ever say those words specifically? I need you to, whatever it is. So for example, you're having a really bad day, really emotional, really sad. And in that moment, you just want somebody to quietly sit next to you and give you a hug. You don't want the cheerleader who's telling you it's going to be okay. You don't want the person who's going to give you advice and tell you to go get a second opinion and go do this and go do that. You just want to sit and be, and you need a hug. But your partner or your sister or your mom doesn't necessarily know that today all you want is a hug. And it's very important to be that clear and say, you know what? I don't want you to be the cheerleader today. Because tomorrow, when you're in that same mood and all you really want is the cheerleader because you need to get yourself out of that space and be able to get yourself to treatments, that's the day you need the cheerleader. So then you say, Mom, I need you to just tell me it's going to be okay. That's what I need from you today. So be very clear, be very specific. Give those people exact directions on what you need in those moments. And again, now we're going to talk a little bit about what are those family dynamics? How do I have these conversations? So we'll talk a little bit about that too. I want to give some examples because I think it will be helpful to kind of illustrate those moments where it's really hard to balance those situations. And so we'll talk through a few of those. The other thing I encourage patients to do as well is to write it all down. Write it down. You're a young adult with cancer, or you're just a young adult. Let's take the word cancer out. altogether. As a young adult, who is the person that would make your choices in the event that you can't make them for yourself? So let's pretend like we don't have cancer and somebody is in a car accident. Who's the person that can make their choices for them? The person that will make their choice is their next of kin. As a young adult, who is that for you? It may be your mom or your dad because you're not married. So it's your parents. That's your next of kin. The closest living relative are your parents. But your parents are divorced and they don't always see eye to eye on everything. But they have equal ability to be your next of kin and to make that choice for you. So who do you really want to be that person? Or maybe you just feel that it's too much of a burden for your mom or your dad, and you want it to be your sibling. Your next of kin doesn't have to be the person that you put as your healthcare proxy. So our living will is where we write down all of the choices, all of the things we would want done for us in the event that we can't make those decisions for ourselves. But that healthcare proxy is the person that's going to carry out those wishes. The things that I said on paper are going to be dictated, hopefully, by that person that's written on that paper. If you're married, that next of kin is your spouse automatically. But maybe you and your spouse have been going through some issues lately, and maybe you don't want it to be your spouse anymore. Maybe you want to go back to having it be your parents or your sister, or you don't really talk to those people very much, but you've been living with your best friend for 12 years and you really want it to be your best friends. The hospital or the people that are making those decisions, those doctors, are going to automatically go back to that family of origin or your spouse and ask them for their opinion. So it's really important that we consider making an advance directive. There's very simple forms that you can get from your oncologist's office, or you can go to a lawyer and have a 27-page document printed up. Either way, they work the same, but it's very important to consider those choices, because that's when we start to think about who is the person that's going to make those choices for me, and have I told them what I want my wishes to be. Also our HIPAA form. So as a young adult with cancer, your mom may be in the room with you when you come to an appointment. You may be lying in a hospital bed and your brother is next to you, and the doctor comes in and just starts talking freely. But maybe you don't really want your mom or your brother or your significant other or your friend or whoever's with you to know all of your personal healthcare information. And there's no judgment in that. Anybody can be the person you want to share that information with. So it's really important who you put on that HIPAA form, and to be very clear in saying these are the people that can call and get access to that information. So we're going to go back to a little bit about these family dynamics. How do I make my decisions? How do I decide? Here's a really big key question. If I'm a young adult with cancer, who do I bring to my doctor's appointments with me? Do I bring my significant other of 5 years? Do I bring my brand new spouse? Do I bring my mom? Do I bring my sister? Do I bring my best friend? There's no right or wrong answer, as long as you know for yourself who feels right to have in that room with you, and that you've shared that with those players, those people around you. Who do I want in that room? I also want to be very clear and say that doctors are going to ask questions that may be very personal to you. I know for many young adults with cancer, one of the biggest things they struggle with is their parent may still see them, especially those that are in their early 20s, maybe still even college age. They're asking very personal information. They're asking about your sexual activity. They're asking about your, do you use any drugs? Do you smoke marijuana? Do you drink alcohol? All of these different questions. And your mom is sitting in the room with you. Your dad is sitting in the room with you. So keep in mind that those people that are in that room at that moment may hear answers to questions you weren't necessarily prepared to answer in front of them. So I want you to keep that in mind. For some people, this cancer diagnosis will change those family dynamics and their willingness to share information with their family. I had one patient tell me, I never would have talked to my mom about these kind of things, but here I am. I'm talking to her about my boyfriend, and I'm still in college, and I'm sharing information with her that I never would have told her, but I'm with her all the time and I'm sharing that information. So keep in mind that they're going to get a lot of personal information. I had an experience where I had a young patient who was newly married. She had been married for about 6 months. She had this significant health crisis that led to a cancer diagnosis. So she found herself in an emergency room with her spouse of 6 months. Her sister was her closest relative geographically. And so she was the person that also came and met them at the hospital. The parents, they lived at a distance, so they came and joined the conversation a little bit later, a few days later. The mother-in-law came to help out as well. Another sibling came and wanted to all be a part of this. That spouse of 6 months feels that he's that person. That sister feels that she's that person. But ultimately, what does that patient want in that moment? Who does that patient want asking questions to the doctors? Who do they want dictating all of this? Many young adults who have cancer oftentimes tell me that they feel like a child again. I feel like I am now back at a pediatrician's office because here I am, 22 years old, and my mom is the one talking to the doctor. Because that doctor is not asking the patient questions, but instead maybe asking the adult questions, the adults, the parents. And so it's important to also advocate for yourself and stop and say, excuse me, doctor, I would really like it if you asked me those questions. I would like to answer for myself. And so it's okay to say that, to remind the doctor, remind your parent, remind your sibling, your spouse, I'm the patient. I want to answer those questions. Or I'm not feeling well enough. I don't remember things well enough. I've been going through treatment. I can't, the timeline, it's not all working out, but my spouse has written it all down. And the spouse wants to answer all those questions. It's okay to figure that out as you go along. I had an experience when I was newly married. I think we had been married about 3 years. I had a 1-year-old, 5 months pregnant with my second child, and my husband was extremely sick. He was in and out of the hospital several weeks trying to figure out what's wrong. And I take my husband in this moment of crisis to the doctor. I dropped my child at my mom's house last minute. So now my mom is going to parent my kid for I don't know how many days. I have to be okay with the fact that somebody else is going to be that parent figure for my kid. And that's also a tricky dynamic as well. And I take my spouse to the hospital. He goes into this, we go into an ultrasound, and I go with him because he was scared. And then we come back to the emergency room, to the curtain area, and my mother-in-law is talking to the doctor and answering all these questions. And my brother-in-law is sitting there and he's answering questions. And I'm thinking, but you haven't been living with him. How do you know really what he's feeling or, you know, the symptoms he's been having? And he's been telling you bits and pieces over the phone, but I feel like that's my information to tell you. I have the calendar. I have it all written out when he started feeling different things. So I want to be the one to tell him. And my husband, he also wants to be the one to talk to. So I had to be mindful, though, that although it was bothering me that other people I felt like were speaking for our little family here, it didn't bother my husband. He was like, well, of course they would ask my mom. I don't know. She's always known me, and maybe she knows family history that I don't remember. And it didn't bother him at all. He was totally fine with the doctor asking her questions. And so I had to remind myself, you know what? He's the one in charge. This is his moments, and I'm along for the ride to the extent that he wants me to be along for the ride. I had a patient tell me one time, again, another young adult, this newly out of college, she's back home. She has a cancer diagnosis that she is always going to have. It has been a huge impact on their family dynamics. It has been a huge impact on their financial situation as a family. It has been a huge, overwhelming time for everybody. She is feeling again like a child because her friends are going off and getting their jobs, and she's back home living with her mom and dad. She feels like she's a financial burden because of the medical bills they've been racking up. She's been sharing with her mom information about, the guy she was recently dating and things that maybe she wouldn't have shared with her mom. And that was great that they had these moments. One thing she said to me, though, she said, in these moments, my mom has been oversharing with me. And my mom took that opportunity to say, you know what, your dad and I, we were really having a lot of problems before you came home from college because of this diagnosis. We were actually considering getting a divorce. And she really struggled with being the person that her mom felt like she should share that information with. She didn't want to know. And she had to stop and say to her mom, Mom, I appreciate that I am probably oversharing with you, and I want you to tell me if I'm oversharing with you. I can't be the one that hears that piece of it from you. I can't be your person that you're sharing your financial concerns with, because I'm feeling very guilty about being a burden, about being the thing that's causing this financial concern. I can't be the person that you go to for emotional support. So she was advocating for herself after some time of us talking through this and talking with other patients who were going through similar experiences, of saying, okay, Mom, I understand that this is really a hard time for you. I can't imagine what it's like to be the mom of somebody with cancer. But I need you to talk to somebody else about that emotional feeling, because I can't take any more on myself. I can't do it. I have too much going on and I'm already not feeling well. I can't be the person that you go to, that you need support from. And that was her moment to say, that's how I need support right now. I want you to be here for me, but I need you to go see the social worker, or go see your friends, or find a support group, or find other moms of young adults. I can't be that person. And I thought that was so beautiful that she recognized that that was too much for her in that moment. And there was honestly nothing wrong with her saying that that was too much for her in that moment. Another story of a young adult with cancer. So I had a young mom. She was in her 30s. She had 2 little kids. She had a very debilitating type of cancer, or a very debilitating immune response to her cancer is actually what it was. She was having difficulty walking. She couldn't be alone. She couldn't toilet herself properly. She couldn't bathe herself properly. And here she is, a young mom. Her husband is going off to work every day because somebody has to pay the bills. Somebody has to keep the insurance for the family. Somebody has to be able to do that piece of it, because if we lose that, how are we all going to make it? And so it's okay to say, you know what, this is my role right here. I have to be the person that's going to go out and earn money. And there is no judgment in that. Again, it's realizing that there's all these different people. So in that moment, she's also a young mom and has these little kids to care for. How do I take care of them? I literally can't even walk around the house on my own. I can't take care of children at this moment. And as a mom, I can tell you that that would be one of the most difficult things I think I could ever go through, is how do I deal with that? How do I say I can't be a parent right now? And so what worked for their family during that time of crisis, during that time of the diagnosis and her treatment, the patient had to go live with her mom, because the mom's house was more accessible. She was able to get around it a little better. There was a bathroom on the first floor. There was a bedroom she could sleep in on the first floor. Her mom was retired. Her mom was home all day. Her mom could supervise her. Her husband went off to work, and their children were at school, and the mother-in-law came and picked the children up from school and came and helped to parent those children. They did have time back together each day or several times a week where they could all be together, or on the weekends, she oftentimes would go back to her home. But during the week, in that moment, that's what worked for that patient, is going back to mom, that family of origin. She's going to be my person right now. So when she came to her doctor's appointments, it wasn't her spouse, who was her next of kin, who was there with her, hearing the information firsthand from the doctor because he was at work. So it was mom that was in those moments. And again, it's balancing and figuring out what's right. There is not always a very clear, concise answer to all of that. I will also say that balancing those moments of having somebody else come in and parent your children can also be very difficult while you're laying on the sofa because that's all you can muster today, and that's okay. Somebody else is coming in to help take care of your kids, and that may be very difficult for you because they may not be doing it exactly how you would have. I wouldn't have given them that snack. I wouldn't have let them have that much screen time. I wouldn't have done this. I wouldn't have. But I have to get through today. So again, those choices, those moments, you have to figure out what feels good and what feels right. And then how do I share that with my family? So when we talk about being empathetic and being gentle, we want to use a lot of those I statements. And to say to your husband in that situation where the husband is going to stay home with the kids and the mom is going to help take care of her, I understand this actually must be really hard for you to balance being my husband and trying to take care of me. You might feel really helpless. And I know it's probably a huge burden that you're going to work, and maybe you do just want to be home with me. I can't imagine how hard that must be to try to parent, go to work, make sure we can pay the bills, and take care of your wife with cancer all at the same time. That must be really hard. So I don't want you to think anything less, but I think that it's going to be most helpful to us if I have my mom help me. I need to maybe stay with my mom a few days a week because I think that's what's best for our family. And so now instead of saying, you can't take care of me, you're not doing a good enough job, you won't take time off from work, I've now acknowledged how difficult this is to be this spouse, juggling 16 things. To that new spouse, that spouse of 6 months, to say, honey, I know we got married and I really love you. And I love my sister and she lives close by. And I think she also really wants to help. And she's always been the person that's been there for me. She's always been the person that's helped to take care of me. And I'm struggling with how to help to have both of you there with me at the same time. So is it okay with you? Can we talk about how you feel about this? How does it feel for you if my sister comes to those appointments with you? Is that okay? And they may say no, and then you say, but it's still really important to me. And so it's just trying to gauge and get a feeling from all of the people around us. We want to make sure we're asking all of those questions, that we're acknowledging all of those people. I do want to save a few minutes to do some questions and answers. So I know Sadie is on here from Stupid Cancer, and she's helping to moderate us. And we have about, I would say, about 8 minutes to go. So I do have some more case examples, but if there are any questions, I would be happy to hear them. Oh, I think you're on mute. Nope, here's Sadie.
Hi, everyone. I don't see any questions coming in just yet.
All right, so while we're figuring that out and while we're seeing if we do have any questions, I'll share a few more examples of people that I've worked with. Again, I've been at my job for quite a long time, and every day is, I feel like a new patient is a new example and a new situation. And as I said before, I don't think there's ever a right or wrong answer. But we want to be mindful of all of the people that we're including in this. I had a young patient. He was about 18, 19 years old. He's at his freshman year of college. He comes home for the very first time, or comes home from the end of his freshman year, and he's having a pain in his testicle. So he has to tell his mom about this pain, which is very uncomfortable for him to talk about with his mom. And he goes to the doctor. So here we are, we're in the doctor's office because you're 18, so your mom is with you. And turns out he has testicular cancer. So in these moments, now he's having the doctor talk to him about fertility. And does he want to preserve his fertility? And here he is, you know, you're going to start treatment tomorrow. So you better go to the sperm bank now. And so he has to go to the sperm bank with his mom to go preserve his fertility in case 10, 20 years from now, he wants to have kids. And he said, I felt so embarrassed in that moment. I felt like a little kid in that moment, that I couldn't believe I had to have these conversations. But I thought it was so beautiful that he got past that moment and said, Mom, this is what I have to do. You have to take me to this place. I have to go there, because what if? I don't know what's going to happen. And this mom, who was in this also very awkward situation, because it wasn't necessarily what she wanted to be talking about, said, okay, let's do this. And so she took, I would say, utilize the people around you, the professionals around you. She didn't want to break down and sob in front of her son because she didn't want to scare him. So you know what? She sobbed in my office and came to me and talked about how hard it was to be a mom and be terrified for your kid. And knew that she was getting support. He was totally fine with her talking to a stranger. It's okay to unload those feelings on an outside party, because sometimes we need somebody who's going to listen without judgment. I don't want to complain about my mom, my sister, my husband, my whoever with another family member. I'm going to go complain to that professional, unload it all, unpack it all, and then I can go back to my family. So did I see a question pop up, Sadie?
Yeah, we got one question. What can healthcare providers do to further support those cancer patients who might not want to connect with a cancer peer group because they just want to get back to the normal life that they might have had before?
Absolutely. I had a patient say to me one time, she goes, is it okay that I never want to wear pink and go to a walk? Because I don't want to. It doesn't feel right to me. So I would say that is absolutely your choice. I offered to a patient yesterday, do you want to talk to another young adult who's also a mom and also scared to get treatment, and she's done? Do you want to talk to her? Will that be helpful for you? And she said, no, I don't really want to know what I'm about to go through. I said, okay, that is okay. That is perfectly fine. So at most cancer centers, many of them anyway, I don't want to say most, we offer supportive counseling. We have, we have all different types of integrative medicine and things of that sort. But if you don't have that specifically at your cancer center, there are places like the Cancer Support Community, which is a national organization. Places like Stupid Cancer, places where there's professionals who you can speak to. Cancer care, there's various ways to get that support. And I would say use that professional to unload it all. Use that professional to share those feelings, because they are listening without judgments, and they are not going to see you tomorrow at the dinner table. They're not going to see you next week when you're trying to get back to life and remind you of how you were feeling in that moment, because that may not be what you want to share with other cancer patients. And it also may not be what you want to share with, say, your best friend or your significant other. You may want to just talk freely. It's very easy to do when you utilize those supports around you. And there are many organizations that even offer those as a telephone support as well.
All right. There was a follow-up to that, was how can we successfully deliver resources to patients while being mindful that they don't want to have cancer in their face 24/7?
Absolutely. I think it's really important to remember that we are, some days cancer is going to be a huge, we have this little wedge here. These are all the pieces of my pie that make up who I am. I'm a mom, I'm a spouse, I'm an employee, I'm whoever. And now I've stuck this cancer patient piece in there. And some days it's going to be really big, and other days I want that piece to be as small as possible. And some patients want to participate and wear the survivor ribbon, and other people, that is not what they need. So those are those moments where it's really important to be very clear with the people around you. I don't want to talk about this. I don't want to talk about it today. I want to go out with my friends. I don't really want to be here in a cancer center, so I don't really want you to come talk to me about cancer. When I come see a patient in our infusion center, I will often say to them, is it okay if I sit down now? Are you okay with talking today? And I will never in a million years take offense to a patient saying, I really don't want to talk today. There is no reason why you can't say that to your professional people around you, or say that to your family and friends. I had a patient, real quick, I'll say, she had a pink elephant. She would meet her friends for lunch, and if she put the pink elephant on the table, Today was the day it's okay to talk about the elephant in the room. You can ask me about cancer. If I don't put the pink elephant on the table, please don't ask me because I don't want to be a cancer patient today. So it's really important to say to your family and friends where you are today and what you're okay with today. And remember that tomorrow may be completely different. So give yourself that permission.
Great. Thank you so much, Carrie.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate it.